All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai Bashim Rachak. Double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS who rule well, and also honor and salutations to those of you who are of the hopeful elect and are out there teaching the word of sincerity and truth. All right, so I was on my way to camp here, and I was listening to this video this morning, and it was an interesting video, to say the least. I don't know who the guy is. Maybe I'll put it in the description box once I find out who it is. But he was talking about um, propagated history and how it organizes the personalities of the people involved in history, right? So if you take a certain group of people and you, let's say, remove their history, right? Remove the past and what that can do to that group of people, right? Or if you take a specific group of people and you inflate their past and what type of behaviors that would cause. So I'm gonna play in just a minute here so you can hear a little bit of it, and then I'll comment on certain things that he said. But what I pulled from the video and watching it, the little bit that I have watched so far, is that nothing that Esau has done to us has been by accident, and sometimes I'm inclined to say, like, some of these things that Esau benefited from have been by chance, and I've said that before. I've even done shows on it before, but now that I'm thinking about it and I have the opportunity to see a different perspective, Esau is a wicked devil, man. And anything that comes with that, whatever comes with that wickedness, he is a master at it, right? He's a master of personality. He's a master of psychology, if you will, right? He's a master of diet, right? And knowing how to get you addicted to certain foods and how to mix and mingle different ingredients to make it more addicting, right? He's a master in, like when you think of chemistry, right? Chemistry is nothing more than the study of how chemicals work together, right? How different things that are mixed together react in the body. And when I tell you that Esau's a master at it, he's a master at it, man. And he's been able to take this high level of information and knowledge and use it to his advantage. Right? Me and a family member of mine was talking, and he was saying that white people are built different. Now, he's not in the truth, but he was saying that white people, they're made different. He said we were joking around about how cops could see a 12-year-old boy, 13-year-old boy, and go full force on him because he's so-called scared. He was scared for his life. There's a 13-year-old kid, still bald-faced, and how these Edomite cops can formulate this story in their mind. Oh, he's a threat. He's threatening. But when they see a 13-year-old Edomite kid, they'll talk about him like, oh, you remind me of my son. You've got a lot of potential, but you won't see that same potential in a so-called black child, so-called black kid. So we were talking about that, and he was like, and I told him, I said, well, it's not that they're built different, but yes, they are built different now. But I said to him, when you realize that somebody is effortlessly better than you, right? It develops an envy inside your blood. And I've talked about this before, right? But it makes you envious of that person, and your envy, when you're envious of something or someone, it makes you do things that are immoral, because that envy that's inside of you, that envy will make you do some hateful, destructive things. And that's what is the impetus behind the so-called white man's behavior. Not his prowess, but his envy is what makes him do the things that he does to our people. Right? So in getting back, right, when I'm talking about this video here that I'm about to play in just a second, he has studied how we behave ourselves, and he studied it to a T, and he understands that if he does certain things, that it's going to merit or it's going to cause certain behaviors to come out of our people. So I'm gonna play this clip, and I'm gonna talk about it as he goes on. So I'm gonna put this down for just a second.
Definitely, in mentioning the book, The Falsification of African Consciousness and Behavior, as you recall, of course, we deal with that in pretty good detail about history as propaganda, history as mythology, about how the organization of history serves to organize people's personality and structure. I think I might have mentioned to you, Papa, to this audience some time ago, about a very interesting history.
So he's talking about how propagated history and its organization can organize the behaviors of people, and I'm saying that's a real thing. I don't have any proof, right? I haven't researched this topic myself, but that's a real thing, man. You gotta think, because you gotta think about how they've taught history to the masses, right? If you could recall, if you're between the ages of I don't know, say 30 and 65, right? If you're in that age bracket, right? Recall, because it's what they've taught in school. After I've been in elementary school, is a little different these days. That's why I say that age group. But if you're in between that age group, and you can recall just for a second, elementary school, and maybe even up to middle school, and how they taught history. They taught it in a way where our existence prior to slavery is never talked about. I can remember a class, and I want to say 8th grade. And the teacher's name was Mrs. Sullivan, and it was a world history class. It was the first world history class I had ever had. Before then, I was only having geography and and a little bit of American history. But in this class, the first day of class, the first thing we learned about was Napoleon. Right? Now, luckily for me, I had a dad who was into Black Power and all of those things. So I understood that there was history, obviously, before Napoleon. But Napoleon was a Frank, right? A Edomite Frank, and she spoke about it. She spoke to Napoleon as though that was the beginning. And maybe that was just the way I was receiving it, because I was a little bit biased to what she was teaching. But you don't start history there. Like that's not even in the middle. You can't even say that's the middle of history. Like Napoleon, if I'm not mistaken, it was in the 1500s, right? If I'm not mistaken, I gotta look up the history again. But that was like 400 years ago, 500 years ago, right? That wasn't even that long ago. So you can't start a history class there, because how did Napoleon rise to power, right? And before Napoleon, right, you had Ferdinand, you had, you know, Queen Isabella and the Spaniard. You gotta talk about all of Edomite history. If you're gonna start with Edomite history, I would have had more respect if she started world history with Greece, you know. But anyway, if you could recall that, right, how history was taught, you would think that black people didn't start until slavery. So-called black people. You didn't see there was no known history of so-called black people until you had the Portuguese going around, you know, conquering so-called African lands. That's when black people start. That's when their history starts. And imagine what that does to the psyche of a child, man. For a 9 or 10-year-old kid, right, who's already experiencing a little bit of white privilege by that age, because I can remember it, right? As a matter of fact, I remember we came inside from recess, right? And this is just to speak to white privilege. I hope it don't sound like I'm rambling. This is all pertinent to this video. But I remember coming inside from recess, and matter of fact, I remember what grade I was in. Second grade, Mrs. Kitchten's class. Don't ask me how I remember this. Second grade, Mrs. Kitchten. And this kid had his crayons in his desk, and when he opened up his crayon box, all the tips of the crayons had been broken. Now that sounds like to me that the box, now of course in hindsight, but that sounds like to me that the box fell out of the kid's desk and fell in a way because all the tips were broken off the crayons, right? And then the crayon box was, you know, picked up and put back in the desk, right? So when the kid opened his crayon box, he saw that all the tips of his crayons were broken. He started crying and tells the teacher, and the teacher goes, "Oh, who did this?" And now that I'm thinking about it, I never thought of this, but now that I'm thinking about it, it was probably the fucking teacher who walked by the desk, bumped it maybe, or maybe didn't even bump it. You know, sometimes when you're a kid, you stuff all kinds of. You remember them desks that had the pocket in the front of it? You stuff all kind of stuff in that desk, and it might have been at 444. It might have been at an angle, and the crayons just, you know, after time slid out of the desk and dropped. And she saw him, picked them up, and put them back in the desk, right? But she made a big deal about who broke, I forget the kid's name, but who broke his crayons, and I'm gonna separate everybody, and I'm gonna pass around a piece of scratch paper, and you're gonna either put I did it or I didn't do it on the paper, right? So she's looking at me with the paper in her hand, like, yeah, just go ahead and write on this paper that you did it, because I know it was you. And you know, me being second grade, I had to have been 7 years old, petrified out of my mind, not knowing so like, damn, like I didn't do it. Why would I put on the paper that I did it? She was like, yeah, you did it. I know you did it. And she sat there, right, and told me that she knew I did it. So I put on the paper I didn't do it, right? So we passed it. I don't know why I'm rambling about this story, but I got to tell it. So I passed in the paper, and everybody passes in their paper, and then she looks at it, and nobody, of course, has said I did this. Right, so she goes, okay, so nobody wants to say who did it wrong, so I'm gonna pass out another piece of scratch paper. And then she came back to me again. So my dumbass, being the idiot that I was, put on the paper I did it. And this is not the only time I did this in my life, which I mean, I regret. I was a kid. In my defense, I was a child, but you know, I knew it was wrong for me to have to do that, right? But anyway, I did that, and now I'm in trouble for it. So at that age, even you experience a little bit of white privilege, man, and black. I don't know if you say misprivileged or unprivileged, right? But you experienced that at a young age. So then that mingled with this history that you're learning in school that nobody knew who you were until you got put into slavery. That works on the psyche and the mind of a child, man. That works on the child's mind. And this is why so-called black people behave the way they do. So let me play some of this video, man. I'm talking a little bit too much.
Interesting history and a very interesting experiment in hypnosis. that dealt with what they call time. When a hypnotist out there in New Jersey hypnotized a group of students, gave them post-hypnotic suggestions, and he changed their time sense. And some he told, when you awaken from this, hypnotic state, you will have no past. All your past will be gone. And others he told, he elaborated their past and gave them an inflated past. Others he took the future from them or inflated their future. And some he even removed their present from them.
Right. So he's just giving the different scenarios of this hypnosis that they did in New Jersey. It was an experiment that they did in New Jersey, and confusing the people's time. Right. Again, like he said, he took the past away from them, and now he's getting ready to go into what each of those things did to their behavior. Right. Once they were awakened out of the hypnosis, what those different time confusing those time confusing hypnosis, whatever level of it they went through, what each of those things did to their behavior and how they behaved after they were awoken from the hypnosis, right? So I'm gonna play a little bit more of it, but then he says something else when he gets to the inflated future that I want to talk about, and then I'll end it there.
And it was very interesting the effects that these suggestions had on their personalities. The ones who had their history removed and their past removed projected orientations of lethargy, laziness, lack of drive, low motivation,
right?
sense of purposelessness.
Right. So he's saying the ones that had their past removed, they were lazy. They didn't have any sense of purpose. They didn't want to do anything, which is understandable, right? If you don't know the rich history of your people, right? You think there's nothing to answer to. Knowing, like, being in the truth, right? What it's done for me personally, it gave me a sense of pride, and not pride in that the scriptures say pride coming before destruction. I'm speaking in terms of pride where you're proud of your history, where you're proud of what you come from, right? If that's removed from you, you're not going to care, right? But if you know that you have a rich history, there's a sense of pride that comes with that, and you say, you know what, I don't want to let that down. I don't want to. A part of your behavior in the world comes from you want the reputation of your nation to be held intact, right? So you behave a certain way, you carry yourself a certain way, you do certain things. You go to the restaurant and you tip way more than you need to, right? You go to I don't know, open a door for somebody, or when somebody opens a door for you, you say thank you, or you have manners, and you just carry yourself in a certain way. Because me personally, I'm me speaking for myself, and I think I can speak for most of us when I say you don't want to tarnish your nation's how your nation is perceived. You don't want to tarnish that, so you behave yourself in a certain way. And if somebody's removed the richness of your history, you're not going to care about that. I'm nothing anyway, so I might as well act like nothing. I might as well be nothing, right? And it's not a conscious thing, it's a subconscious thing. Like, if you don't have something to be proud of, you're not going to that means you don't have anything to maintain. You don't have any character to maintain. So that's a big thing. And when I was listening to it, I was like, that's got to be true. Again, and I don't have any proof of it. I didn't do the study myself, but that's got to be true. Just based in what our people have become, what our people are. It has to be true, right? So let me play a little bit more of this.
and meaninglessness in their lives. You see, alike, and the problem with sense of direction. You see, the ones who had their history inflated,
right,
had the opposite effect.
right,
In a sense, the increased ego, the increased pride, and
right. The increased ego, the increased pride. Those who had their history inflated, which when you go back to those elementary school days, these so-called white kids, right, had their history inflated, right? Matter of fact, I was in a town here in Massachusetts yesterday, and it's a predominantly white town, and I stopped at a store, and this lady, she she was looking at me, and she had a real disgusted look that I was that I was parked next to her, or for whatever reason it was, right? But what would make somebody act like that to somebody that they don't know, right? What would make you turn your nose up at me? You don't know me. You don't know me. I could have just helped you. I could have helped your daughter. She needed a couple of dollars. I gave your daughter a couple of dollars. You don't know. You don't know. You don't know what person I am to judge. You feel it. I can't say specifically what she was thinking about me, but you feel it. You got a feeling that Esau gives you, right? So, that idea, right? That sentiment comes from, their inflated history. For their whole life, there's been someone telling them in every situation they're in that they're better than so-called black people. They're better, so they'll turn their nose up at you like, oh, look at this. And if you look at an Edomite, take a good look at them, man. How you turn your nose up at somebody who got like roaches in the house. Esau actually looks like a roach. And I'm being jestful, right? But Esau is gross looking. He's disgusting. If you ever looked at their people, they look gross. They turn this nasty red color when they're in the sun. They're gross looking, and you gonna turn your nose up at me? But that comes from their false sense of pride because of this inflated information that they've been given about who they are and what they are. But if you really dig into the history, Esau hasn't done shit in his existence since he's been allowed to be around the other nations with a level of civility. He hasn't done anything but steal and kill. That's his MO, his modus operandi, and that's always going to be his MO. Always. Right? So let me play some more of this.
And the whole bit and so forth. The ones, and I can't recall all of it now, who had an inflated future, it's sort of like going to heaven.
Right.
Experience, in a way, they experience a type of pacified state.
Right. So he's saying. So this is another point I wanted to make. That he's saying that people that had an inflated future, like going to heaven, had a pacified state, right? Which you got a lot of these black consciousness people who always find a way to demean faith, who always find a way to demean hope, because they feel like people that hope and people that have faith are letting the world pass them by, right? Or letting the world get by them. While the other people are living in their heaven and living in their life, we're allowing the world to pass us by because we think of something better. But the reason why that is, right? The reason why that would be passive, because along with the inflated future, people don't understand that there is still an expectation from the Heavenly Father. And what do I mean, right? Yes, we hope in something better than this, right? Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't, in this degree of hatefulness that we experience every day, want to have something better? But the difference is, we understand that the Heavenly Father also has an expectation of us to work, has an expectation of us to excel and be great, because that's what Israel is, a prince of power. So there's an expectation of us to be better and to be greater, right? So that's the difference between somebody just sitting around being passive, right? Thinking that God is going to fix it for you, but then understanding that the Heavenly Father has an expectation, that He don't want us to, even in our captivity, don't want us to just be sitting around. The scriptures always talk about work and grinding and being stewards, right? That's those words are all are linked to working hard, man. You know. So that's it. I'm gonna try to put the link to that video in the description box so you can watch the rest of it. Come on, man. What the fuck you doing? So you can watch the rest of it, and I hope that was edifying. I want to give all praises to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai Bashim Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders at GMS who rule well. Honor and salutations to those of you who are of the hopeful elect. And with that, I say shalom.